Chapter 60-73, You forced her to her death. Although Bai Yuechen was also a little scared, he had only heard about it and was not as scared as Bai Huanwu. The door was opened by the servants and Lan Luochen walked in from outside. Bai Yuechen's face immediately turned pale. Although there was no change in Lan Luochen's appearance and he was still as handsome as before, his originally gloomy eyes were now bloodthirsty. Even the invisible pressure on his body was enough to make Bai Yuechen's heart tremble and his legs tremble. Lan Luochen walked to the main seat and sat down. His voice was emotionless as he said, "First uncle, cousin Yuechen has just returned. Why are you chasing him away? It's been a long time since we brothers met. It's not too late to catch up and leave." Bai Huanwu's face turned even paler. He knelt down and crawled a few steps. "Master, Yuechen doesn't know anything. Please, let him go." Although Bai Yuechen was afraid, he clearly did not realize the situation before him. He went forward to support Bai Huanwu and snorted, "Father. Don't beg him. I don't believe that he would really dare to do anything to me. I am the legitimate descendant of the Bai family." Before Bai Huanwu could speak, Bai Yuechen's body involuntarily flew towards Lan Luochen who was sitting on the ground. His body knelt on the ground, but Lan Luochen grabbed his neck. "In the name of justice. I am the head of the family now. If the Bai residence is changed to the Lan residence, who is in the name of justice?" Bai Yuechen could not breathe. His eyes were bulging. Bai Huanwu knelt in front of Lan Luochen. "Please spare my life, head of the family. You are blood-related cousins, please spare him this time." Lan Luochen's lips curled into a sneer. "Blood-related cousins, this good cousin of mine has humiliated me countless times. He has tried to kill me several times. If it weren't for my good fortune, I'm afraid I wouldn't be alive today. Family head, he was blinded by lard. I will teach him a good lesson. I only have one son. For the sake of your mother, please spare him. I beg you." Bai Huanwu kowtowed as he spoke, his face full of fear and despair. The coldness on Lan Luochen's face became even colder. "For the sake of my mother? Do you have the right to mention my mother? Just because she fell in love with people from the lower continent, you forced her to die. You are all murderers." "No, it's not like that. She died because she had difficulty giving birth to you and bled heavily. It has nothing to do with us." Bai Huanwu defended himself. "If it weren't for you guys chasing after her and my father, would her body have suffered severe damage? If it weren't for you guys pressing on her step by step, would she have been injured by the demon beasts? If it wasn't because she was injured by the demon beasts and her body suffered severe damage, how could she have died during childbirth? We didn't want your mother's life back then. We just wanted to separate them. We didn't want anything to happen to her. Even if we let your mother down, if it weren't for your grandfather's help, how could you have ascended so quickly? Break the bones and connect the tendons. For the sake of blood ties, spare Yuechen. I beg you." Bai Huanwu pleaded. "If it wasn't for this small favor, do you think you would still be alive?" Lan Luochen snorted coldly and released his grip on Bai Yuechen's neck. Bai Yuechen collapsed on the ground and coughed desperately. It took him a long time to recover. Bai Yuechen was both hateful and afraid, but after what had just happened, he did not only provoke him. Lan Luochen glanced at him and said indifferently, "In 2 days, you will return to the 10 Directions Academy and do as I ask. Otherwise, there will not be a single member of the Bai family in the Bai residence in the future." Chapter 60-74, A total of 3,000 continents. Although Bai Yuechen was indignant in his heart, he did not dare to resist now. He could only nod and agree. After Lan Luochen finished giving his orders, he stood up and left. He returned to his own courtyard. This was an extremely spacious courtyard. It originally belonged to the Bai family head, but now it belonged to him. There was not a single servant in the courtyard. No one was allowed to enter without his instructions. Previously, some maids had wanted to offer themselves as pillows to sneak in, but in the end, they turned into a dried corpse and were thrown out. From then on, no one dared to step into this courtyard without permission. Lan Luchen's gloomy expression dissipated a little when he saw the scroll of painting in the study, but his eyes gradually became filled with madness. Little Jiu, since I can't win your heart now, then I'll first win the entire world. When that time comes, I'll share control of these 3,000 continents with you. How about it? Lan Luchen's finger gently brushed past the face of the person in the painting. The madness in his eyes gradually turned into tenderness. Little Jiu, everyone is pretending. Only you are real. Only when I see you do I feel that I'm still alive. You can blame me or hate me, but I will never let go. My current cultivation base is enough to look down on the entire divine enlightenment continent. That de-biming will eventually die in my hands. In the future, no one will compete with me for you. You are mine, and you can only be mine. Bai Yuechen stayed in the Bai family in fear for 2 days. On the day before he left, Lan Luochen cut off one of Bai Wanhwa's fingers in front of him, and then he said indifferently, if you can't complete the mission, I will cut off one of his fingers every month. After I cut off his fingers, I will cut off his toes. After I cut off his toes, there will be other members of the Bai family until you complete the mission. I will definitely complete the mission. You can rest assured. Bai Yuechen was so scared that his face turned pale. He was extremely terrified of Lan Luochen. Although he had killed people before, he could not be compared to this devil in front of him. He was not a human at all. Lan Luochen did not even glance at Bai Huanwu, who was frantically taking over his fingers. He strolled around and said to Bai Yuechen, this time, on account of my mother, give him a chance to take over the finger. There won't be such a good thing next time. Oh right, if you say something that you shouldn't say, it won't be as simple as cutting off the finger. Bai Yuechen immediately swore an oath and agreed. He rolled and crawled away from the Bai family. It was not until the flying spirit tool flew hundreds of miles away that Bai Yuechen collapsed on the ground as if he was exhausted. It was too terrifying. If he had known that Lan Luochen was such a pervert, he would have killed him right away. However, it was too late to say anything now. The lives of his parents and the rest of the people in the Bai residence were in his hands. He could only follow orders. When he thought of what Lan Luochen had asked him to do, he felt a chill run down his spine. What was this devil trying to do? Bai Yuechen tried his best to calm himself down. When he returned to the Academy of 10 Directions, he had already returned to his usual appearance. When someone asked him about the Bai family, he had been perfunctory. In his heart, he was thinking about what Lan Luochen had told him. Director Sun of the Array Division found that Bai Yuechen's recent performance had been exceptionally outstanding. Almost all the teachers and lecturers often praised Bai Yuechen in front of him. He thought to himself that Lan Luochen taking over as the head of the Bai family must have provoked him. It was indeed a good thing to learn after knowing shame. Therefore, when Bai Yuechen came to ask him about the array from time to time, he did not ask him to find the corresponding lecturer, but to help patiently answer it. On this day, after Bai Yuechen asked a question, he seemed to say unintentionally, Chancellor, the defensive array of the 10 Directions Academy is second to none in the Divine Enlightenment continent. In your opinion, is there anything else that needs to be improved? Chapter 60-75 would play along. Director Sun felt that Bai Yuechen's question was quite a good one. He smiled and said, our ancestors of the 10 Directions Academy are very wise. It is inevitable that there are loopholes in the ordinary protective array because it is located on land. But our protective array is built according to the water. It has an additional layer of barrier and almost no weaknesses. If we must be picky, the water around the 6 Harmonies waterside pavilion has been struck by lightning several times, which is weaker than the defensive formations in other places. Bai Yuechen's eyes flickered, and he immediately said, that doesn't matter. No force in the Divine Enlightenment continent dares to make an enemy of the 10 Directions Academy. By the way, Chancellor, I still have some doubts about the 10 Heavens 9 Earth Heaven prison formation. Can you help me answer them? Director Sun was distracted by Bai Yuechen's next question and did not take what he had just said to heart. That night, Bai Yuechen passed the information he had received to Lan Luochen. When Lan Luochen received the news from Bai Yuechen, the gloominess in his eyes immediately lit up. He could not wait to break through the 10 Directions Academy immediately. In this way, Yun Chujio, who had no place to hide and shelter, would not be able to escape from his grasp. However, now was not the time. He had to be fully prepared this time. It would not be too late to attack after the other side had surrounded Di Baiming. At the same time, in a cave at the back of the mountain of the 10 Directions Academy, He Xinjiu was squatting on the ground and eavesdropping with the 2 old men in high spirits. "Master, can you be a little more serious? Don't listen to these wild lovebirds whispering to each other. Hurry up and see if Bai Yuechen has any movements. I keep feeling that something is not right after he came back from the Bai family this time." Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu's old faces blushed. She was clearly the one who wanted to listen, but now she had thrown the blame on them. However, young people nowadays really dared to say such sweet words, causing them to want to look for a second spring. Under the control of Chu Feng, the disc array quickly began to operate. Then, Bai Yuchen's voice came from inside, "Master, I have already investigated. The weak point of the defensive formation of the 10 Directions Academy is in the 6 Directions Waterside Pavilion." The expressions of Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu immediately changed. Originally, when their little disciple said that Bai Yuechen had something wrong and wanted to eavesdrop, they thought that she was looking for an excuse to mess around. They did not expect to hear such shocking news. Chu Feng was F. How did he know that the weakness of the defensive formation of the 10 Directions Academy was in the 6 Directions Waterside Pavilion? Why did the Bai family ask about this? "I'll have someone arrest him now and interrogate him severely." Yun Chujio quickly stopped him. "Master, don't alert the enemy. He must have something else to do. Let's just let him jump around for now. When the time comes, we'll beat him at his own game." Beat him at his own game? Let's not talk about anything else. What if someone really uses the 6 Harmonies Waterside Pavilion as an opening to attack the defense array? Chu Feng said. Yun Chujio's black eyes rolled around. "I have a good way to strengthen the 6 Harmonies Waterside Pavilion without making a sound. I wonder if you'll agree." "What way?" "The reason why the demon beasts on the 6 Harmonies Waterside Pavilion became fierce is because they absorbed the fierce energy of Tao Tai. Why don't we open the seal of Tao Tai and let the demon beasts in the surrounding waters absorb the fierce energy of Tao Tai? In this way, the demonic beasts in the surrounding waters would become extremely fierce. The most important point is that after they absorb Tao Tai's fierce qi, they will listen to De Hua's words, which is equivalent to listening to my words. When that time comes, no matter who attacks us, they will never come back." Chapter 6076. Is she a demon? Before Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu could speak, De Hua's furious roar was heard from Yun Chujia's spiritual sense. "You black-hearted, evil spirit. Haven't you harmed me enough? You actually want to feed my body to those weaklings? Do you even have a conscience?" De Hua was so angry that it was about to cry. Didn't it provoke her a little in her previous life? Not only was it harmed to become a 10,000-year-old single beast, but it was also imprisoned for such a long time. In the end, it even acknowledged the thief as its master and became her spiritual beast. And that was not all. Now, it was even scheming against its bones and fur. Was she a demon? "You dumbass. Can I get your bones and fur back without using some tricks? You lost a little bit, but you got your bones and fur back. Isn't that worth it?" Yun Chujio scolded angrily. De Hua, huh? It seemed to make sense. It only needed to give up a piece of bone to be absorbed by those idiots. The remaining bones and fur could be taken back. It was indeed worth it. After He Xinjiu comforted De Hua, she looked at Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu. The two of them discussed for a while and finally agreed to Yun Chujia's suggestion. After all, Tao Tai's soul had already signed a contract with its own disciple. It was useless to keep Tao Tai's skeleton and fur. They might as well make use of it as trash. If De Hua knew what they were thinking, it would probably be furious. You guys are the trash, your whole family is trash. Thus, Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu found President Gu and brought He Xinjiu to the Six Harmonies waterside pavilion silently. Yun Chujiu released De Hua to intimidate the demonic beasts on the Six Harmonies waterside pavilion. De Hua finally heaved a sigh of relief and bared its teeth at Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu. If Yun Chujiu had not warned it not to speak, it would definitely have scolded them. Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu looked at its ferocious grandmother and could not connect it to the huge creature that had been sealed. The four of them reached the end of the Red Valley. Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu took out an ancient jade pendant. After forming a complicated seal, a ray of light shot out from the round hole of the jade pendant and shone on the stone wall. A stone door appeared on the stone wall and the four of them walked in. Inside the stone door was a winding staircase that led down to the bottom of the lake. After Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu opened another enchantment, Yun Chujiu saw a huge stone room. There was a huge skeleton inside. It was covered in red fur and was fixed to the ground by 4 chains. Although there was no flesh and blood, judging from the skeleton, its head took up more than half of its body. The ratio was extremely strange. Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu took out their keys and opened the 4 chains. The huge skeleton did not collapse and remained standing in its original spot. De Hua leaped onto the skeleton with its short legs. Its heart was about to burst with joy. As long as it fused with the skeleton, even if its cultivation was not even 1,000th of its peak, it would be enough to eat the 4 idiots in front of it. Ha ha ha, this was called letting the tiger return to the mountain. This was called lifting a rock to smash its own foot. The moment it thought of that wretched girl's frightened gaze, it felt its entire body tremble. However, the fusion that it had expected did not happen. Instead, because of its collision, the skeleton collapsed on the ground and fell apart. De Hua, I know that you want to let those demonic beasts absorb your ferocious aura as soon as possible, but you don't have to be so anxious, right? Your fur is not bad. The weather has been a little cold recently, so I can make a cloak to wear. This red color is so festive, there's no need to dye it. Chapter 60-77 The whole pig was in bad shape. De Hua almost died from anger. The weather was a little cold. It was obvious that they had to use 10,000-year-old ice to cool down the temperature every day, okay? And the cloak. They weren't afraid of getting a prickly rash. Of course, that wasn't the main point. The main point was its fur, okay? De Hua wanted to store the skeleton and fur into its storage space, but then it realized that it was only a spiritual beast now, so how could it have any storage space? If it wanted to take the skeleton and fur away, there was only one choice, and that was to put them in the storage ring of this black-hearted and evil girl. De Hua suddenly felt that its whole body, no, the whole pig, was in bad shape. What was the difference between this and a meat bun beating a dog? Previously, it had been eagerly escorting them, leading the way in front, and even eagerly wanting to fuse with its body. It was all a pit. He Xinjiu ignored De Hua, who had no hope of becoming a beast, and stored a large pile of bones and fur into her storage ring. She did not even let go of the 4 10,000-year-old black iron chains. The corner of President Gus' eyes twitched violently. Could this troublemaker be trying to use public affairs for personal gain? What happened to letting the demonic beasts be tainted by Tao Tai's vicious aura? Why did all of them enter her storage ring? Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu were also a little confused. Just as they were about to speak, Yun Chujiu said obediently, Master, if we throw these bones out rashly, those beasts will definitely break their heads and bleed for these bones. This won't do. Therefore, I'm prepared to grind these bones and scatter the ashes. Some of them will be scattered on the island, and some of them will be made into insoluble pellets and thrown into the misty lake. De Hua rolled on the ground in anger. It was not going to live anymore. This stinky girl was too mean. This big liar, this big pig trotter, had been lying to it all this time. Chu Feng and the other 2 looked at De Hua rolling on the ground with their mouths agape. Was this thing really a Tao Tai? Could it be mutated? He Xinjiu glanced at De Hua, who was rolling on the ground, and said with her spiritual sense, "Don't worry. One of your toes is enough. If you continue to make trouble, I'll use your skull to make it." De Hua immediately stopped rolling when he heard that. "Is what you said true? You didn't lie to me this time?" "Don't worry. When have I ever lied to you? Do you still not trust my words?" Yun Chujiu said with certainty. "De Hua, don't you feel guilty when you say that? When have you never lied to me?" However, it had no other see. After a few days, Yun Chujiu secretly scattered the remains of Tao Tai's bones on the Six Directions waterside pavilion and threw a lot of small pellets into the misty lake. The creature deliberately fed a few more small pellets to the sawtooth lake dolphin so that it could pay attention to the movements in the misty lake. De Hua watched as its bones became food for other demon beasts. The sadness in its heart was about to turn into a river. Was there any other beast in the world that was more miserable than it? It thought for a while and finally made up its mind. "You let me out. I want to eat my bones and fur. Maybe it can make me materialize right away." Yun Chujiu was really shocked. "Are you serious?" "Of course. Since I can increase my cultivation base by eating spirit stones, I can definitely eat my own bones and fur," De Hua said with certainty. It finally understood. If it hadn't acted earlier, these bones would definitely have been lost, not to mention the fur. That damned ball of wool had long been eyeing it like a tiger eyeing its prey. It said that it wanted to turn it into some six-piece set. It was simply angered to death. Chapter 6078 Flying Pig. Yun Chujiu saw that De Hua was so confident, so she thought for a while and agreed. De Hua was her spiritual beast, so she was naturally happy that De Hua could become stronger. Therefore, she only left a few small bones and fed the rest of the bones and fur to De Hua. De Hua was crying in his heart as he ate, thinking that it was a majestic beast that had actually reached the point of eating its own body. If this was to be spread out, it would be a laughing stock. De Hua ate for more than 2 hours before she swallowed all the bones and fur. De Hua burped a few times and began to wait for the materialization happily. As long as it fully materialized, it would be able to turn back into its original majestic appearance and no longer have to be a pig. However, after an hour, 2 hours, and 4 hours, the sun had set, but it did not change at all. Only its pitiful claw remained in the state of materialization. He Xinjiu picked up its materialized claw and scolded, "Didn't you say that you can materialize after eating it? Where is it? Spit it out." De Hua was already very sad, but after being scolded by He Xinjiu, it immediately howled in despair. "Who did I offend? Back then, I was also a beautiful beast that everyone loved. It was because of you that I was in such a miserable state. Why are you still scolding me? Sob, sob, I don't want to live anymore." Yun Chujiu, why did she feel that this style was somewhat familiar? Although He Xinjiu was pained by the bones and fur that De Hua had eaten, she had no choice but to throw it to the ground after eating it. At this moment, He Xinjiu was dumbfounded when she saw a pair of fleshy wings grow out of De Hua's back at a speed visible to the naked eye. Moreover, they were the ones that had already materialized. Yun Chujiu stretched out her finger and poked them. Not to mention, the texture was not bad. De Hua subconsciously flapped the pair of small wings and flew up. "Haha, I told you that eating them would definitely be useful. If I grow a pair of wings today, they might materialize tomorrow. Very soon, I will be able to dominate the 3,000 continents again. Ha ha ha. Alright, even if you grow a pair of wings, you will still be a flying pig. What's the point of showing off? Hurry up and land on the ground. If anyone finds out, I'll cut off your wings and roast them for food," He Xinjiu said coldly. De Hua was fuming, but she didn't dare to disobey. She persuaded herself to bear with it until it fully materialized. Then, she would deal with this stupid girl. In the following period of time, Yun Chujiu and Chu Feng often went to monitor by Yuchen's voice transmission talisman, but they found that he hadn't contacted Lan Luochen since the last time. However, they received some feedback from the array. Recently, Bai Yuechen had been intentionally or unintentionally testing the location of the array's core. According to Yun Chuzhou, director's son provided Bai Yuechen with some false information. At the same time, Chu Feng finally got in touch with Qi Chen. Qi Chen did not have their good luck. He had just woken up and was slowly nourished by various rare herbs. It was estimated that he would not be able to move freely for a year or so. Chu Feng gave him a reminder. After all, Lan Luochen was still a student of the Divine Enlightenment Academy. If he wanted to do something, it would be very convenient. He Xinjiu sent a message to Wu Zhao of the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall, reminding him to pay more attention. As for the Alliance of 10,000 Cities and the Iron Blood Massacre Alliance, since they did not have reliable candidates, they did not remind them to avoid alerting the enemy. When the storm was coming, everything was quietly dormant. Chapter 6079 was still young. Yun Chuzhou thought about it and felt that Lan Luochen was most likely in cahoots with the Divine Devil Hall again. Otherwise, based on his cultivation, there was no reason for him to get the Bai family so quickly. Moreover, if he did not have a backer, he would not have any designs on the 10 Directions Academy or the entire Divine Enlightenment continent. Yun Chuzhou could not help but worry about Di Baiming's safety. It had been a long time since she had heard from him. Since the voice transmission talisman could not be sent out, she could only wait passively for him to contact her. Coincidentally, just as she was worried, Di Baiming sent her a message. Di Baiming was probably afraid that the voice transmission talisman would be monitored, so he only said 4 words, "Is everything all right?" Yun Chuzhou had an exquisite heart and immediately understood his worries. She directly said, "I have already told Master about your matter. Master and the others are magnanimous and did not blame us." A moment later, the voice transmission talisman sounded again. "All right, then you can inform the 2 Grand Elders. I'll look for an opportunity to sneak into the upper house. I have something important to tell them." After Yun Chuzhou agreed, she eagerly came to meet the 2 Grand Elders. Previously, she had already told them that the Beiyu was Di Baiming. Although the 2 old men were very unhappy, they could not resist He Xinjia's coaxing. In the end, they just let it go. After the 2 heard Yun Chuzhou's words, they looked at each other. It seemed that the little brat's cultivation was not low. He could actually sneak in on his own. The 2 of them also wanted to see what kind of person their little disciple had chosen, so they immediately nodded in agreement. The next night, Di Baiming quietly entered the upper house and arrived at the prehistoric branch. Di Baiming had already returned to his original appearance. He was cold and noble. Even the displeased Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu could not help but praise him in their hearts. Putting everything else aside, just his bearing and appearance was extraordinary. Moreover, he was able to sneak into the upper house without alerting the guards. It was evident that his cultivation was also extraordinary. President Gus' expression was also very complicated. He had originally thought that Binyu was extraordinary. Now that he looked at it, he realized that he had only displayed 1 or 2 out of 10. He was indeed a dragon among men. President Gu glanced at the starry-eyed He Xinjiu again, and suddenly felt as if a good cabbage had been eaten by a pig. He could not help but curse in his heart. This troublemaker might have used some bad water to trick this person into his hands. What a waste of such a char. Di Baiming bowed to Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu. After all, Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu were Yun Chuzhou's masters, so they had to have the proper etiquette. He nodded to President Gu as a greeting. President Gu did not argue. After all, he had to bow to Yun Chuzhou because of his low seniority. Chu Feng snorted, "You 2 are good at playing us 2 old men in your hands." He Xinjiu quickly said with a smile, "Master, as the saying goes, even the most cunning fox can't escape from a good hunter. Didn't we get exposed in the end? It means that we are not good enough in front of you 2. We are still young." Chu Feng snorted coldly, "You are the only one who knows how to talk." However, his face softened. "Tell me. What is it that you want to talk about? Why did you have to sneak in the middle of the night?" Di Baiming said with a solemn face, the Bai family, the Iron Blood Alliance, and the Alliance of 10,000 Cities have joined the Divine Devil Hall. They are going to attack the 10 Directions Academy, the Divine Enlightenment Academy, and the Temple of 10,000 Buddhas. Chapter 60-80. This kid was too outstanding. Chu Feng was shocked. Fortunately, he didn't rashly send a message to the Iron Blood Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 Cities. Otherwise, he would have really alarmed them. However, he said indifferently, although what you said is somewhat valuable, we have long discovered the clues in this matter. Is that what you're talking about? Di Baiming was a little surprised, but he didn't ask in detail. He continued, other than that, I don't know what kind of cultivation technique Lan Luochen has cultivated to be able to absorb the cultivation of others for his own use. The cultivation techniques of the two of you and Senior Qi Chen should have been absorbed by him. His current cultivation is already unfathomable. Chu Feng and the rest were immediately shocked. It was obvious that they had difficulty digesting what Di Baiming had said. Yun Chujia's eyes were wide open. No wonder Lan Luochen was able to hold the Bai family in his hands so easily. It turned out that he had mastered such an evil martial art. Why did it sound like the star-sucking technique? Prince Charming, that's not right. My master and the rest were attacked by a giant hand. That giant hand could not have belonged to Lan Luochen. How do you explain that? President Gu staggered when he heard the word, Prince Charming. This troublemaker was really thick-skinned. No wonder he was able to bring a handsome man home. The corners of Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu's eyes twitched. However, they did not have the time to care about this now. They were all waiting for Di Baiming's answer. That giant hand most likely belongs to the Divine Devil Hall Master. Lan Luochen must have made some kind of deal with him to get the Divine Devil Hall Master to make a move. As for how the power absorbed by the giant hand was transferred to Lan Luochen's body, I have no idea. But one thing is certain, that giant hand must have some kind of restriction. Otherwise, Lan Luochen would not be able to make a move. Moreover, if my guess is right, that giant hand should not be able to make a move again in a short period of time. We don't have to worry about him for the time being. Yun Chujio frowned. Even if we don't have to worry about the palace master of the Divine Devil Hall, that Lan Dregs is not easy to deal with. He has absorbed the cultivation of my master and the other two. Maybe he has also absorbed the cultivation of others. Even you can't defeat him. Di Baiming said calmly, according to his temperament, he will definitely lead his men to attack the 10 Directions Academy in a head-on battle. At that time, I will lure him away. You guys will first gather your forces to destroy his subordinates and then go to support me. Even if his cultivation is unfathomable, when the time comes, he will be left alone and will have no choice but to surrender. Yun Chujio glared at a certain honored warrior. I don't agree. His cultivation is much higher than yours now. If you lure him away, wouldn't you be walking into a trap? Other than that, what better way do you have? He hates me to the bone. Only I can lure him away. If not, no matter how strong the defensive formation of the Academy of 10 Directions is, it might not be able to withstand the long-lasting attack of his subordinates. This is the most reasonable way. Besides, he might not really be able to do anything to me. After all, the cultivation of others belongs to others. Even if he turns it into his own use, there will be many restrictions. Although Di Baiming's tone was indifferent, his words carried the bearing of a superior. It was an attitude of looking down on the world. So what if the opponent was strong? What was there to be afraid of when the future was dangerous? Chu Feng could not help but nod repeatedly. Good kid, you have the appearance of my youth. As long as you are safe and sound this time, I will make the decision to marry my precious disciple to you. Chu Feng's true thought was that this kid was too outstanding. It was better to let his precious disciple marry him as soon as possible so that he would not benefit others. Chapter 60-81. Shui Wuji's worries. He Xinjiu pursed her lips and did not say a word. Although she was not an evil person, she did not have such a selfless feeling. There was no reason for the pretty boy to put himself in danger for the sake of the lives of others. Blue Dregs hated the pretty boy to death and would definitely kill him. What if he was in danger? Chu Feng and the other two could also see that He Xinjiu was a little unhappy. They asked Di Baiming a few more questions and tactfully left. As for Ding Wenru, she had asked Yun Chujiu to find an excuse to stay somewhere else in the evening. After Chu Feng and the other two left, He Xinjiu snorted and ignored Di Baiming. She poured herself a cup of tea and sipped it. A certain someone sat at the table awkwardly, not knowing what to say. After a while, Di Baiming said, "Little Jiu, I know you are worried about me, but there is no other way. Furthermore, I am not doing this for the sake of the bigger picture. I am also selfish. Lan Luchen's intentions towards you are clear as day. If you do not get rid of him, he will attack you sooner or later. Since that is the case, why don't you cut the Gordian knot and get rid of this root of trouble?" Yun Chujiu snorted coldly again but did not say anything. Di Baiming sighed, "Other than that, the matter of the Divine Devil Hall should be settled. Otherwise, we will never be able to meet again." Now, the master of the Divine Devil Hall had clearly treated Lan Luochen as a knife in his hand. If we don't get rid of Lan Luochen, we will not be able to break through the Divine Devil Hall. Therefore, even if we take the risk, I can only give it a try. Yun Chujiu actually knew this in her heart, but she still didn't want Di Baiming to take the risk. She pouted and asked, "Then do you still have that bone in your hand?" If he had that bone, Di Baiming could use a secret technique. Although he would be very weak after using the secret technique, he could still save his life at the critical moment. Di Baiming shook his head. "I thought I would find the bone in the ruins of miracles last time, but I didn't expect to find the Devil Emperor's mask. But don't worry, Shui Wuji's current strength is not bad. Together with Enfeng, the three of us can at least delay Lan Luochen for a while. It's not too late to help us after you finish the battle." Yun Chujiu saw that Di Baiming had already said so, so she didn't say anything else. "Oh right, did Wu Jis head see Chi Chi recently?" "Where is Chi Chi?" Di Baiming curled his lips. He really wanted to see him, but unfortunately, he didn't get what he wanted. He would sigh every few days. However, he broke some seals because he was in a bad mood. If he didn't suddenly show his power, we wouldn't have been able to break out of the encirclement. He broke another part of the seals. Did he remember anything? Yun Chujiu asked curiously. Di Baiming raised his eyebrows. Ever since he remembered a part of his memories, his mood became even worse. Because he vaguely remembered that there was a marriage contract in the demon race. He was afraid that Yun Qi would divorce him after she found out. Puff! Yun Chujiu immediately spat out the tea in her mouth. What the hell? There was a marriage contract in the demon race? Really? What is his identity in the demon race? Who is he engaged to? He only has a vague impression. He can't tell the details, and it might not be true. Besides, the demon race and the human race don't interfere with each other. As long as he doesn't return to the demon continent, it's nothing. He's just worried that Yun Qi will deal with him, Di Baiming said. Chapter 6082 was all about pig trotters. He Xinjiu clicked her tongue and said, "I have to say that Chi Chi really knows how to control a man. Such an unruly man like Wu Ji was actually managed so obediently. Most importantly, Chi Chi couldn't be bothered with him at all." Although Di Baiming had never met Yun Qi before, he felt that she was probably not an ordinary person since she was his daughter-in-law's best friend. It was normal for her to attract Shui Wuji. He Xinjiu blinked and said gloomily, "You men are indeed hogs. Didn't Qiying say that you had a lover in your previous life? Let me tell you something. You can solve the problems that you have caused yourself. If someone really comes looking for you, don't come and cause trouble in front of me." Di Baiming did not expect that the fire would burn his body in the end. He immediately said with a solemn face, "I've told you before. Even if I haven't awakened all my memories, I'm sure that I only like you in my previous life and now. There is no one else. Although Hei Xinjiu was very happy in her heart, she snorted coldly and said, "HMPH. That's nice. I'll see you later." After chatting for a while, Hei Xinjiu returned the little perverted dragon to Di Biming, return it to its original owner. Maybe it can be of use when you fight with the blue dregs. Alas, it's a pity that I'm still too weak to help you. If only I had a way to stimulate my potential. When the time comes, we can definitely defeat the blue dregs together. Hei Xinjiu counted with her fingers. It had been a long time since she had stimulated her killing intent. It seemed that she had never displayed such an awesome state since she arrived at the Divine Enlightenment continent. "I'd rather you didn't have the chance to unleash your potential," Di Biming said indifferently. The reason was simple. Every time Yun Chujiu unleashed her potential, it was because she was extremely sad or angry. His heart ached for her. Hei Xinjiu was so smart. Although Di Biming didn't say it, she could guess what he was thinking, and she couldn't help but feel sweet in her heart. This guy looked at a handsome face under the candlelight, and his lustful heart started to stir. He started to feel extremely resentful towards Goei Batsao. Goei Batsao, which had been scolded 8 times, was so angry that its leaves started to twitch. It had done so many good things for her. Had she forgotten all about it? It only knew how to think about those trivial things all day long. How shameless. The lecherous heart was not a blockhead. Seeing Hei Xinjiu's restless little eyes, its eyes started to heat up. Just as the two of them were filled with pink bubbles, Hei Xinjiu suddenly felt very, very hungry. The desire for food far exceeded the lecherous heart. Hei Xinjiu was so angry that she immediately let De Hua out. "Eat, eat, eat. Why don't you die from eating?" De Hua felt a certain cold gaze and quickly knelt on the ground. It waved its small, meaty wings and explained, "I didn't want this either. But I suddenly felt very hungry. By the way, I haven't eaten anything since I ate myself." Di Biming, what did she mean by since it ate itself? Yun Chujiu kicked De Hua's body. "Get out and eat." De Hua dared not speak out of anger. It crawled outside while shivering, waiting for Hei Xinjiu to feed it. Yun Chujiu threw a few corpses of demon beasts to it and then told Di Biming what had happened, HMPH. This dumbass was afraid that I would feed its bones and fur to other demon beasts, so it ate them all. In the end, it grew a pair of useless wings. Chapter 6083 was about to begin. De Hua, who was kicked out, cursed in his heart as he ate, "You're useless. Your entire family is useless. I'll kill you after I materialize." However, when he thought of the tragic experience in his previous life, he suddenly lost his confidence. Even if he regained his strength, he probably wouldn't be able to defeat this insidious and despicable girl. The more De Hua thought about it, the more miserable it became. It simply turned its grief and indignation into appetite and gobbled up the corpses of the demon beasts. Seeing that De Hua's appetite was even greater than before, Yun Chujiu hugged a certain deity's waist and cried, "Prince Charming, why do you think I'm so miserable? I raised 1 or 2 trash, especially this De Hua. She's eating me until I'm broke." A certain deity was also unable to explain Hei Xinjiu's silly cuteness. Each of them had a great background, yet they were all trash now. De Hua felt relieved after hearing that. "Damn it. I'll eat you to death." Therefore, this guy ate himself until he was so full that he couldn't even close his small wings. Then, he burped and said weakly, "I, burp, eat, burp, am full." Yun Chujiu got angry when she saw De Hua's rotund appearance. She kicked him away and scolded him for a few more words before she calmed down. Yuan Gun Gun, who was standing in front of De Hua, looked at Yun Chujiu. After being disturbed by De Hua, this guy's lust was gone. He yawned and climbed onto the bed before falling asleep. After using it, he was thrown aside. In the next few days, Di Biming stayed in the wilderness branch and accompanied Yun Chujiu when he was not cultivating. If it were not for the hidden worries of the Divine Devil Hall and Lan Luochen, Hei Xinjiu would have thought that such a small life was not bad. Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu felt sorry for their little disciple. Now was a time of turmoil and they could not collect lightning strike stones, so they asked President Gu to take out more than half of the lightning strike stones stored in the academy for Yun Chuzhou to cultivate. Unfortunately, this guy's demand for the power of lightning was too great. After absorbing all of it, he only climbed from the 4th level to the 6th level of the divine summoning. On this day, Chu Feng once again heard Bai Yuchen's voice transmission talisman. Lan Luochen had instructed him in the voice transmission talisman that he would personally lead people to attack the 10 Directions Academy after half a month. After the battle had begun, he had asked Bai Yuchen to think of a way to destroy the core of the protective array. He had also told him that Jian Zhuyu, Jiang Shuangli, and the others were also his people. If necessary, he would ask them for help. President Gu and the others couldn't help. If it weren't for Yan Qingcheng, no, Yun Chuzhou being alert, the 10 Directions Academy might really be doomed this time. When no one was around, Chu Feng said to Zhuang Mu, on the 15th of the month, 10,000 beasts roar, Tao Tai comes out, disaster is coming, and all things are destroyed. The ethereal soul, the reclusive Tao, 2 reincarnations, disaster is hard to break. Say, if it weren't for our precious disciple, let alone the 10 Directions Academy, the entire Divine Enlightenment continent might have fallen into the hands of the Divine Demon Hall. Could our precious disciple be that ethereal soul? Zhuang Mu said with a serious expression, whether she is or not, let's forget these words in the future. Chu Feng was stunned at first, then he nodded. Yes, if it was spread out, it might not be a good thing for his disciple. After all, the hearts of people could not withstand the test. Many people believed in non-humans, and their hearts were bound to be different. When that time came, it would cause unnecessary trouble for his precious disciple. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, the army led by Lan Luochen was like a hot knife through butter. They did not encounter any obstacles and they charged all the way to the periphery of the 10 Directions Academy. Moreover, the main force was concentrated in the water area of the 6 Directions Waterside Pavilion. Although President Gu was mentally prepared, he still acted very seriously. Lan Luochen, what do you mean by this? Chapter 6084 Promised you 1,000 miles of red makeup. Lan Luochen said coldly to President Gu, who had hurried over from the defensive array, what do you mean? The world will unite after a long period of separation. The days when the world is divided should be over. From now on, the Divine Enlightenment continent will be under the control of the Divine Demon Hall. President Gus's face was livid with anger. Nonsense. Lan Luochen, I advise you to rein in your horses before you make a big mistake. Moreover, the defensive formation of the 10 Directional Academy is not a decoration. It is a fool's dream if you want to break through it. Lan Luochen raised his head and laughed. His gloomy face was tinged with madness. Big mistake. What is right and what is wrong? It is just that the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. Your defensive formation is not worth mentioning in my eyes. As Lan Luochen spoke, he raised his hand and a huge spiritual Qi Qilin pounced towards the protective array of the 10 Directions Academy. Under its bite, the protective array actually started to tremble slightly. Although it was not enough to break, it was enough to make President Gu pale with fright. Previously, when Di Baiming said that Lan Luchen's cultivation was already unfathomable, he did not quite believe it. But now, it seemed that it was actually true. Fortunately, they were already prepared. Otherwise, the 10 Directions Academy would have definitely been breached. Lan Luochen saw the shock on President Gus's face and coldly snorted, if you don't want the 10 Directions Academy to be reduced to nothingness, call Yan Qingqing over. I have something to say to her. President Gu hesitated for a moment and nodded, okay, I will ask her to come over now. In fact, He Xinjiu had been on the 6 Harmonies Waterside Pavilion the whole time, and she was bleeding herself. She had wanted to bleed Di Baiming for a rainy day, but Di Baiming had been watching her all day, so she didn't have the chance to do it. Taking advantage of the chaos today, this guy gritted his teeth and started bleeding. By the time Di Baiming came back after checking the situation outside, He Xinjiu had already bled more than 10 small porcelain bottles. He Xinjiu stuffed all the small porcelain bottles into Di Baiming's hands. You must come back alive, or I'll turn your head into a green prairie. Di Baiming's eyes were a little sour. He hugged He Xinjiu tightly in his arms. Wait for me. I'll definitely come back. I'll grant you 1,000 miles of red makeup and protect you for the rest of your life. He Xinjiu pursed her lips. Okay. At this moment, the news of President Gu arrived. The two of them had no choice but to separate and carry out their own tasks. 15 minutes later, He Xinjiu took a boat to the waters of the Six Harmonies waterside pavilion to meet with President Gu. When Lan Luochen saw Yun Chujiu, the madness in his eyes was immediately replaced with gentleness. Little Jiu, as long as you agree to leave with me, I will spare the lives of the people from the 10 Directions Academy. Yun Chujiu looked at Lan Luochen with a cold gaze. Right now, she only had hatred and contempt for him. Lan Luochen, if you still have half a shred of humanity, stop immediately. We can still be strangers. Otherwise, today, it will be either you die or I live. President Gu, who was at the side, cursed in his heart. Wasn't his death the same as yours? In any case, it was your life. The light in Lan Luchen's eyes dimmed. Stranger. Little Jiu, I would rather give up a stable life for you. I would rather be pointed at by thousands of people for you. Do you think him a stranger? Yun Chujiu smiled coldly and her tone was full of sarcasm. For me. You're only doing this for your own obsession. If you really want my best, you shouldn't keep pestering me. If you're really as affectionate as you say you are, you should learn to let go. Lan Luochen, this is your last chance. Withdraw your troops. From now on, we'll never see each other again. Just pretend we never met. Chapter 6085 was in the midst of an intense battle. Retreat? Never speak to each other again. Little Jiu, you are mine, and you can only be mine. Even if you are unable to accept me now, when I rule the 3,000 continents, you will understand my true feelings towards you. President Gu, immediately capture her and hand her over to me, and I will spare your lives. How about it? Lan Luchen's malicious gaze looked at President Gu. At this moment, President Gu was cursing in his heart. He didn't expect this troublemaker to be able to attract bees and butterflies. This Lan Luochen was going crazy because of her. Hearing Lan Luchen's words, he said coldly, Senior Uncle Yen is a member of the 10 Directional Academy. How can he hand her over to you? If you want to fight, then fight. Lan Luochen said contemptuously, stubborn. With a wave of his hand, the soldiers behind him began to attack the defensive formation of the 10 Directional Academy. The defensive formation began to tremble slightly under the countless attacks of spiritual power and the biting of spiritual beasts. Especially after Lan Luchen's spiritual Qilin joined in, the trembling became even more intense. President Gu looked at Yun Chujiu worriedly. Uncle Master Yen, where are the reinforcements you mentioned earlier? Yun Chujiu curled the corner of her mouth and released De Hua. De Hua flapped its fleshy wings and flew around President Gu in a circle. It even specially used its solidified little claw to pat President Gu's shoulder. President Gu, when did this thing grow another pair of wings? A few days ago, Yun Chujiu had brought De Hua, the mascot, to establish a temporary contract with all the demonic beasts that were contaminated by its ferocious aura. However, for the sake of safety, she still released De Hua to deter those demonic beasts. With Yun Chujiu's order, countless aquatic demonic beasts gathered under the nearby water surface and attacked those soldiers of the Divine Devil Hall. Those people of the Divine Devil Hall were caught unprepared. The main reason was that they never dreamed that these aquatic demonic beasts would suddenly attack them in a frenzy. Lan Luochen immediately frowned and immediately contacted Bai Yuechen. However, he found that the sound transmission talisman could not be successfully sent. His heart immediately sank. Could it be that the 10 Directions Academy had long realized that something was wrong? However, he did not take it to heart. Even if the Academy of 10 Directions had long been prepared, with his current cultivation, it was only a matter of time. He temporarily gave up on the offensive-defensive array and let the spiritual Qilin attack the aquatic demonic beasts instead. He himself had a water spiritual root, and the Qilin was also a aquatic spiritual beast. In the blink of an eye, the surface of the lake was dyed red by the blood of the demonic beasts. President Gu couldn't help but reveal a worried expression. Lan Luchen's strength was too terrifying. If this continued, those aquatic demonic beasts would definitely be completely wiped out. At this moment, a clear and cold voice sounded from the battlefield. It wasn't loud, but it entered everyone's ears. Lan Luochen, do you dare to fight with me? When Lan Luochen heard this voice, the gloominess on his face became even more intense. He looked up and saw a white-clothed man standing on a small boat not far away with his hands behind his back. The man's expression was cold, and no emotions could be seen in his eyes. However, in Lan Luchen's eyes, there was a strong sense of mockery and provocation. Di Baiming. Lan Luochen said these 3 words through gritted teeth. He originally thought that he had been trapped by the Divine Devil Hall, but he did not expect that he had actually escaped. Originally, he did not want to take action personally to prevent Little Nine from resenting him. However, he could not care less now. Only by killing Di Baiming could he make Little Nine give up completely. He immediately flew up and directly threw a palm towards Di Baiming. Chapter 6086. He had never been afraid of anyone. Di Baiming sneered. Just as Lan Luchen's palm wind was about to reach him, his entire body was like an arrow that had left the bow as he flew into the distance. Lan Luochen naturally wouldn't give up just like that. As he chased, he released his spirit energy Qilin. Di Baiming released his own spirit energy Ice Dragon. Although he didn't have a water spirit root, ice was formed from water. The Ice Dragon's combat strength on the surface of the lake wasn't weak either. Moreover, he also released the little yellow dragon to assist at the side. The little yellow dragon felt miserable in its heart. The little girl's spirit beast was well-fed, and when there was danger, there was still the little girl blocking in front of it. When it was here, it was fine. If it had nothing to do, it would be thrown into a pile of demonic beasts to fend for itself. When it was fighting, it still had to charge into the battle. They were both spirit beasts, so why was it so miserable? Di Baiming knew that he was no match for Lan Luochen, so he retreated as he fought. He wanted to lure him to the shore. The 6 Directions waterside pavilion was really not close to the shore. Even if he took a boat, it would take a night. Fortunately, Di Baiming had the water repellent bead that Yun Chujiu gave him, so he could move freely in the water. Lan Luochen also had the water repellent bead. The 2 of them fought from the surface to the water, and Di Baiming gradually fell into a disadvantage. Lan Luchen's eyes were filled with killing intent. This time, he had to kill Di Baiming no matter what. It didn't matter even if he delayed the attack on the 10 Directions Academy because of killing him. With his cultivation, he could make a comeback at any time. Lan Luochen thought as he stepped up his attack. Seeing that Di Baiming gradually lost the ability to retaliate, Lan Luchen's face showed a smug look. Before this, even if Little Nine had fallen in love with him, so what? The winner would be the one who laughed until the end. Time would forget everything. He had enough patience to wait. Sooner or later, Little Nine would change his mind. Just as he was feeling proud, killing intent came from both sides. He hurriedly used his spiritual power to protect his body and rushed forward. Di Baiming, who originally didn't have the ability to fight back, suddenly turned around and slapped at him. Lan Luchen's heart sank. At this moment, the Qilin was entangled by the Ice Dragon and had no way to come over and rescue him. The lesser of the 2 powers, he could only dodge Di Baiming's palm and endure the attack from the left side. Lan Luchen's left shoulder was hit and his face instantly turned pale. Only then did he realize that the 2 people who came were also old acquaintances. One was Xue Wuji and the other was Feng. He sneered while fighting with the three people. Di Biming, I thought you were some amazing person, but it turns out that you are so despicable. Not only did you sneak attack, but you also won more than you won. What kind of hero are you? Without waiting for Di Biming to speak, Xue Wuji cursed, Bah! You are worse than a pig and a dog, and you have the nerve to say such a big thing? You are not a good person, yet you want to be a dog of the divine devil hall, yet you still have the face to bark here? Xue Wuji had not been in a good mood recently. It had been a long time since he had seen that unfaithful woman, and it had also been a long time since he had seen his precious son. The most annoying thing was that there might even be some broken engagement. Just thinking about it made him feel bad. He just so happened to vent all his anger on Lan Luochen, scolding him with all his might. Lan Luchen's face was filled with malevolence. Xue Wuji, what kind of a good person do you think you are? Aren't you also Di Biming's dog? You are the fucking dog. This is called a good bird choosing a tree to perch on. What do you know? Xue Wuji scolded. It was not that he was bragging, other than little sister Jiu, he had never been afraid of anyone. Chapter 60-87. The four of them engaged in a chaotic battle. The situation was in a stalemate. The four of them fought from Misty Lake to the shore, but there was still no winner. Xue Wuji cursed in his heart. This evil cultivation method that Lan Luochen practiced was really powerful. It was really difficult to deal with. Lan Luchen's anxiety grew even more. He was very clear that Di Biming and the others were deliberately luring the tiger away from the mountain. Once the battle with the 10 Directions Academy ended, they would definitely send reinforcements. When that time came, it would be as difficult as the day he wanted to kill Di Biming. He had to end the battle quickly. He gritted his teeth and suddenly took a few steps back. While Di Biming and the other two did not react, he bit his right index finger and began to chant an obscure secret language. Not good. He must be using some secret technique. Di Biming and the other two immediately tried to stop him, but it was too late. Lan Luchen's eyes turned from black to blue. The spiritual Qi Qilin in front of him let out a roar and turned into a set of blue armor to wear on Lan Luchen's body. The most unbelievable thing was that the space in front of them started to distort. The scene in front of them suddenly changed. They were teleported. Xue Wuji saw a mountain range not far away and blurted out, Mount Linglong. We were teleported thousands of miles away. Lan Luochen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his hand and then revealed a cold smile. Don't think that I don't know what you are planning. Aren't you just trying to stall for time and wait for Little Nine to bring reinforcements to save you? Wishful thinking. I'll send you on your way right now. He raised his right hand, and blue spiritual power gushed out, directly dispersing the spiritual beasts of Di Biming and the other two, and swept towards the three of them. The three of them didn't dare to force their way in, and hurriedly dodged. Almost in an instant, the three of them fell into a disadvantageous position. They didn't dare to take Lan Luchen's attack head-on, and their attacks were all blocked by the blue armor on Lan Luchen's body, so they couldn't hurt Lan Luochen in the slightest. This was not all. The faint blue light emitted from Lan Luchen's eyes would cause people's divine senses to be in a trance. Di Biming and Xue Wuji's physiques were slightly better, but Enfeng was somewhat unable to take it. His movements began to slow down. In a moment of carelessness, he was sent flying by a palm strike from Lan Luochen. He let out a miserable cry and fell far away. It was unknown whether he was alive or dead. Without Enfeng, Di Bei. He still wanted to live a good life with his unfaithful daughter. He didn't want to die so early. However, they were teleported here. Even if he secretly sent a message to little sister Jiu just now, he would probably die when she arrived with her people. As time passed, Xue Wuji was also seriously injured. Only Di Biming was left struggling. With his spiritual power decreasing and his body heavily injured, Lan Luchen's voice kept echoing in his mind, Di Biming, you trash, you don't deserve little Jiu at all. Other than meeting her a step earlier than me, what else can you compare to me? Go to hell. As long as you die, little Jiu will no longer be pursued by the divine devil Hall. She will be reunited with her parents and will live a peaceful life with me. You should never have lived in this world. You deserve to die. Hurry up and die. Di Baiming's divine sense was in a bit of a daze. Lan Luchen's palm struck his front heart, and his entire body flew out, fiercely falling into the distance. Chapter 6088. Even if it meant eternal damnation, Lan Luchen's face was filled with joy. He only needed one more strike and Di Baiming would die without a doubt. After scheming for so long and losing so much, it was finally time for him to get what he wanted. The heavens did not let him down. At this moment, an angry shout came from the top of his head, "Lan Luochen, you are courting death." Lan Luochen looked up and saw a small dark cloud speeding over from afar. Sitting on it was Yun Chuzhou. Yun Chuzhou was worried about Di Baiming. After the situation in the 10 Directions Academy stabilized, she brought Director Zhao and the others to help Di Baiming. She felt that Director Zhao and the other spirit ship was too slow, so she summoned the small dark cloud and flew away. Director Zhao and the others looked at Yun Chuzhou, who was sitting on the dark cloud, and disappeared without a trace. They were dumbfounded. Were they seeing things? What was Martial Uncle Yen sitting on? Why was it similar to the dark cloud in the sky? Yun Chuzhou quickly rushed to the shore. Although she found traces of a fight, she did not see anyone. It was not until she received the news from Shui Wuji that she found out that they had been transported to the vicinity of Mount Linglong. Only then did she rush over. Lan Luochen ignored Yun Chuzhou. Right now, he only had one goal, and that was to kill Di Baiming. Yun Chuzhou naturally would not let him have his way. She directly let Xiao Hanio curse and released Gowei Batsao and De Hua. She used this opening to land on the ground and released all the stupid cubs and puppets. Even the grasshopper eggs were summoned. As the saying goes, raising a soldier for 1,000 days, using a soldier for a moment. Now, it was time for them to put in the effort. Lan Luochen gritted his teeth. Little Jiu, I don't want to hurt you and your spiritual pets. Get out of the way. Yun Chuzhou would not waste her breath on him. She threw a large pile of jade talisman seals at him, wishing that she could kill him in one go. Good, good. Little Jiu, you forced me to do this. Your useless spiritual pets have no value to live anyway. It's good that they're dead. Lan Luochen raised his right hand as he spoke, and blue power poured out. Although the dumb cubs were extraordinary, they were still young, and they were beaten to pieces. Lan Luochen said coldly, "They're just a bunch of mobs. None of you are worthy to stay by Little Nine's side. All of you can go to hell." The dumb cubs were furious, and each of them used all of their abilities to attack again. However, the difference in strength was too big. After all, even Di Baiming was not Lan Luchen's match. How could they be his match? In less than an hour, the dumb cubs were beaten until they had no strength to fight back. This was because their skin was rough and their flesh was thick. If it was an ordinary spirit beast, they would have died a long time ago. Yun Chuzhou was anxious and angry. Her potential was as unreliable as the crow's mouth skill. She did not know when it would be activated. Even if she was anxious, there was nothing she could do. After recuperating for a moment, a determined look flashed across Di Baiming's eyes. He drank the porcelain bottle that Yun Chuzhou gave him in one gulp and began to activate the secret technique. He no longer had those bones in his body. If he wanted to activate the secret technique, he would have to use up his life force as the price. As for the consequences of burning his life force, he didn't know. As long as there was a slim chance, he wasn't willing to take the risk to try this method. He still wanted to accompany Little Nine to save her parents, use 10,000 Li Hongzhuang to marry her, and accompany her to eat all the delicacies in the 3,000 continents. He didn't want to take the risk. But if he didn't do this, no one could stop Lan Luochen, and the entire Divine Enlightenment continent would fall into his hands. Little Nine would also lose her wings and become Lan Luchen's exclusive property. He would never allow such a thing to happen. Even if it will be beyond redemption, for Little Nine, he will fight with his life. Chapter 6089, An ice arrow. All of a sudden, Di Baiming's body shone with a golden light. His ink-dyed hair had turned into snow-white silver hair. Lan Luochen stared at Di Baiming maliciously. His heart moved and he said sarcastically, "Are you burning your life force? TSK, you are really stupid. Do you think you can win me just like that? But this is also good. I will leave you with a complete corpse. I will let little Jiu see how old you look. She will never want to think about this ugly scene again." Yun Chuzhou treated him as if he was barking like a dog. She looked at Di Baiming worriedly, but since things had come to this point, she didn't have the time to say anything. It was better to kill Lan Luochen first. "Little Jiu, go to the back and hand him over to me," Di Baiming said lightly. Although Yun Chuzhou was worried, she knew that she couldn't cause any more trouble at this time. She could only bring a bunch of badly bruised and stupid cuties to the back. But Face came to Yun Chujia's side and said, "Little fairy, you don't have to worry. Your holiness will definitely kill that scum." Yun Chuzhou didn't say anything. Her eyes were fixed on the battle situation in the distance. Lan Luochen saw Di Baiming approaching step by step. He couldn't help but take 2 steps back and sneered, "Di Baiming, don't struggle so fearlessly. Even if you do this, you won't be my match. Today is destined to be the day you die." Di Baiming stopped about 10 feet away from him. He stood quietly on the spot and looked at Lan Luochen without any warmth in his eyes. Lan Luochen subconsciously took a few steps back. He gritted his teeth and raised his right hand. The dark blue power swept towards Di Baiming. Di Baiming only raised his right hand slightly. The dark blue power actually disappeared into thin air. Lan Luochen attacked again in disbelief. This time, as soon as the faint blue power was released, it turned into nothingness. Lan Luochen gritted his teeth, and directly rushed towards Di Baiming. He had the Qilin armor on him, and even if it was a close combat, he wasn't afraid. However, as soon as he got close to Di Baiming only waved his hand lightly, and the Qilin armor on Lan Luchen's body turned into dust. Lan Luochen fell heavily into the distance and spat out a mouthful of blood. Just as he was about to get up, Di Baiming had already arrived in front of him. He raised his right hand and slapped towards his chest. Lan Luochen wanted to escape, but he was trapped by an invisible pressure and could not move at all. He was not afraid of death, but he was unwilling. Why did he still lose in the end? Why? Tian Dao was unfair. He just wanted to find the last trace of warmth, why couldn't he satisfy his wish? At this moment, a huge hand appeared in the void. Under the huge pressure, Di Baiming's feet sank deep into the soil. He could have tried his best to escape, but he did not choose to escape. Instead, he endured the huge pressure and attacked Lan Luochen. The giant hand suddenly descended and pressed Di Baiming's entire body under the palm. A deep pit instantly appeared on the ground. Lan Luochen was overjoyed. He looked at the unresponsive pit and laughed wildly. Di Baiming, accept your fate. Even if you have the ability to penetrate the heavens and earth, you can only die here in the end. Even if Di Baiming did not die, he could easily kill him once the giant hand left. At this moment, he felt a chill in his chest. He lowered his head to take a look. He did not know when, but an ice arrow had silently pierced his heart. It seemed that Di Baiming's palm attack was fake. In fact, it was to shoot out this ice arrow. Chapter 6090 But Face's power. Lan Luchen's heart was filled with unwillingness. He hurriedly took out a medicinal pill and wanted to swallow it. However, the ice arrow exploded in his body and turned into thousands of ice crystals that invaded his internal organs. Lan Luchen's entire body was quickly covered with a layer of solid ice. He could feel the life force in his body rapidly draining away. Was he going to die? He was not willing. However, Di Baiming could not live either. In the end, he did not get little Jiu. In his next life, he would definitely meet little Jiu before he did. At this moment, he vaguely saw a figure rushing in front of him. It was little Jiu. Was she here to save him? The moment Yun Chujiu saw Di Baiming being pressed into the ground by the giant hand, her heart was torn apart. She flew over and continuously attacked the giant hand. The dumb cuties were the same. They attacked the giant hand with all their might, trying to force the giant hand back to save Di Baiming, who was being pressed down. Even the grasshopper egg crashed fiercely towards the giant hand. Unfortunately, the eggshell was cracked and could not force the giant hand back at all. They were like ants trying to shake a tree. They were not a match for the giant hand at all. Yun Chujiu suddenly thought of the large kitchen knife and took out the large kitchen knife to cut the giant hand. The huge hand was cut open and a small wound appeared. Immediately, golden liquid flowed out. The huge hand was probably angered and immediately swung its hand. Yun Chujiu was sent flying by the huge force and directly crashed into the mountain in the distance. The huge hand lifted up from the ground and headed towards Yun Chujiu, who had fallen to the ground. Clearly, it wanted to completely kill Yun Chujiu. Lan Luochen, who still had a trace of his aura, roared at the top of his lungs, "Stop! You promised me that you wouldn't hurt her." The giant hand did not stop for even a second and charged towards Yun Chujiu. Lan Luochen was angry and anxious. The deep blue color in his eyes became deeper and deeper, and the ice on his body began to melt. When the dumb cuties saw that Yun Chujiu was sent flying by the giant hand, they were all anxious and rushed towards the direction where Yun Chujiu had fallen. At this moment, Gowei Bakao's body suddenly became huge. It flapped its huge wings and rushed towards the giant hand. Although the giant hand was huge, but Face, who had activated its potential, did not give in. It stretched out its claws and grabbed at the giant hand. "Fuck, if I, but Face, don't show my power, you will turn the sky upside down." The giant hand clearly did not expect that Butt Face would suddenly transform. It was caught by Butt Face's sharp claws. Although it was not scratched, it was forced to change its direction. Gowei Butsao also enlarged itself and pulled the leaves toward the giant hand. Unfortunately, this move that had worked every time in the past did not have much effect. Gowei Butsao was very depressed. If it had not given 2 drops of liquid to the 2 old men, it would not have lost so much of its vitality. It was really going to die. If the little girl died, where would it find such a suitable host? Seeing how heroic Butt Face and Gowei Butsao were, the other dumb cubs immediately pounced on the giant hand. They knew that they had to fight to the death today. Otherwise, no one would be able to live. De Hua made up its mind. Damn it, it still wanted to marry a wife. It didn't want to die just like that. Therefore, it temporarily solidified its body. It flapped its small wings and flew up, giving the giant hand a bite. Then, his teeth were crushed. This fellow was simply dumbfounded. It was a Tao Tai. A Tao Tai that could eat anything. His teeth were crushed. Fortunately, it was a temporary materialized body and not his original body. Otherwise, he would have cried to death. Chapter 60-90 Butt Face's power. Lan Luchen's heart was filled with unwillingness. He hurriedly took out a medicinal pill and wanted to swallow it. However, the ice arrow exploded in his body and turned into thousands of ice crystals that invaded his internal organs. Lan Luchen's entire body was quickly covered with a layer of solid ice. He could feel the life force in his body rapidly draining away. Was he going to die? He was not willing. However, Di Baiming could not live either. In the end, he did not get little Jiu. In his next life, he would definitely meet little Jiu before he did. At this moment, he vaguely saw a figure rushing in front of him. It was little Jiu. Was she here to save him? The moment Yun Chujo saw Di Biming being pressed into the ground by the giant hand, her heart was torn apart. She flew over and continuously attacked the giant hand. The dumb cuties were the same. They attacked the giant hand with all their might, trying to force the giant hand back to save Di Biming, who was being pressed down. Even the grasshopper egg crashed fiercely towards the giant hand. Unfortunately, the eggshell was cracked and could not force the giant hand back at all. They were like ants trying to shake a tree. They were not a match for the giant hand at all. Yun Chujo suddenly thought of the large kitchen knife and took out the large kitchen knife to cut the giant hand. The huge hand was cut open and a small wound appeared. Immediately, golden liquid flowed out. The huge hand was probably angered and immediately swung its hand. Yun Chujo was sent flying by the huge force and directly crashed into the mountain in the distance. The huge hand lifted up from the ground and headed towards Yun Chujo, who had fallen to the ground. Clearly, it wanted to completely kill Yun Chujo. Lan Luochen, who still had a trace of his aura, roared at the top of his lungs, "Stop! You promised me that you wouldn't hurt her." The giant hand did not stop for even a second and charged towards Yun Chujo. Lan Luochen was angry and anxious. The deep blue color in his eyes became deeper and deeper, and the ice on his body began to melt. When the dumb cuties saw that Yun Chujo was sent flying by the giant hand, they were all anxious and rushed towards the direction where Yun Chujo had fallen. At this moment, Goei Bakeo's body suddenly became huge. It flapped its huge wings and rushed towards the giant hand. Although the giant hand was huge, But Face, who had activated its potential, did not give in. It stretched out its claws and grabbed at the giant hand. "Fuck, if I, But Face, don't show my power, you will turn the sky upside down." The giant hand clearly did not expect that But Face would suddenly transform. It was caught by But Face's sharp claws. Although it was not scratched, it was forced to change its direction. Goei Butsao also enlarged itself and pulled the leaves toward the giant hand. Unfortunately, this move that had worked every time in the past did not have much effect. Goei Butsao was very depressed. If it had not given 2 drops of liquid to the 2 old men, it would not have lost so much of its vitality. It was really going to die. If the little girl died, where would it find such a suitable host? Seeing how heroic But Face and Goei Butsao were, the other dumb cubs immediately pounced on the giant hand. They knew that they had to fight to the death today. Otherwise, no one would be able to live. De Hua made up its mind. Damn it, it still wanted to marry a wife. It didn't want to die just like that. Therefore, it temporarily solidified its body. It flapped its small wings and flew up, giving the giant hand a bite. Then, his teeth were crushed. This fellow was simply dumbfounded. It was a Tao Tai. A Tao Tai that could eat anything. His teeth were crushed. Fortunately, it was a temporary materialized body and not his original body. Otherwise, he would have cried to death. Chapter 6092 had been dead for a long time. Guai Chao felt that it was most likely crazy. Why did it lose half of its life? Because it did not want to see the little girl be sad. Could it be poisoned? Yun Chujo was now completely focused on Di Biming and did not notice the strange state of Guai Chao. Yun Chujo fed the drop of liquid in her palm to Di Biming's mouth, but she found that there was no reaction. She cut her wrist as if she was crazy and dripped the blood into Di Biming's mouth. However, the blood flowed out from the corner of Di Biming's mouth. Yun Chujo sucked a mouthful of her own blood and placed her lips on Di Biming's mouth. She wanted to feed the blood to Di Biming, but there was no effect. Yun Chujo hugged Di Biming in a daze. No, she did not believe that her gigolo was dead just like that. He said that he would not die. He was definitely not dead. He was just asleep. Yes, he was just asleep. He had even said that he would use her 1,000 miles of red makeup to marry her. He had even said that he would protect her peace for the rest of her life. How could he abandon her? At this moment, Shui Wuji, and Enfeng staggered over. The injuries on their bodies were also very serious. They had just fainted and regained consciousness. When Shui Wuji saw the scene in the pit, his head immediately buzzed. Di Baiming's face was paralyzed. Enfeng's legs went limp and he kneeled on the ground. He cried out with a heart-wrenching voice, "Your Majesty." Enfeng spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted again. Shui Wuji could only endure the pain and treat Enfeng. When Enfeng's condition stabilized, he looked at the bottom of the pit again. Yun Chujia's eyes did not have any focus. She was like a wooden sculpture, but 2 streams of tears were slowly dripping from the corners of her eyes. At this moment, Director Zhao and the others had arrived with reinforcements. Seeing the situation in front of them, they were all silent. The thing they did not want to see the most had happened. Di Baiming seemed to have fallen, but they did not know what would happen to Lan Luochen. Director Zhao jumped into the pit and checked Di Baiming's pulse. He immediately shook his head. There was no pulse. It seemed that he had been dead for a long time. He knew that it was useless to say anything now, so he didn't say anything. He just brought his people to stand guard in the surroundings. Buttface and the other dumb cuties looked at the 2 people at the bottom of the pit worriedly. Even Buttface, who was usually the most talkative, didn't know how to comfort Yun Chuzhou. Perhaps, only time could heal such a deep pain. Yun Chuzhou hugged Di Baiming and did not eat, drink, or speak. After 2 hours, she cut her own arm and fed Di Baiming blood. Even though the blood dripped from the corner of Di Baiming's mouth to the ground, it kept repeating. The pretty boy would not die. She could definitely save him, definitely. Shui Wuji wiped his tears as he hated himself for being useless. If all of his seals were removed, perhaps the facial paralysis would not have died. Little sister Jiu would not be so sad and hurt him so much. A day and a night passed. Yun Chuzhou was still repeating her previous actions. Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu, who had rushed over after hearing the news, could not help but cry when they saw the situation in front of them. Chu Feng said with difficulty, "Girl, you can't go on like this. I'm sorry for your loss." Yun Chuzhou did not have any reaction. It was as if the only thing left in the world was the person in her arms. She only remembered one thing, and that was to save him. He must still be alive. Zhuang Mu sighed and stopped Chu Feng, who was still trying to persuade him. This hurdle could only be overcome by herself. No one could help her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 6093 had a golden light with bloodlines. Another day passed, and the sky darkened. A full moon hung in the sky. Everyone was dead silent. Even Buttface and the others didn't make any movements. They all looked worriedly at Yun Chuzhou, who was still silent. Yun Chuzhou cut her wrist again and dripped blood into Di Baiming's mouth. Unfortunately, as usual, blood dripped from the corner of Di Baiming's mouth onto the ground. The ground beside them was already soaked in blood, but Yun Chuzhou did not notice it at all. At midnight, the soil that was soaked in Yun Chujia's blood was filled with strands of golden light with red bloodlines. The golden light gradually disappeared into Di Baiming's body. Yun Chujia's gaze finally focused. She fixed her eyes on the scene in front of her. She did not dare to move at all, afraid that everything in front of her was an illusion. On the ground, Shui Wuji and the others were also staring at this scene with their mouths agape. Their eyes could not help but be filled with anticipation. Perhaps there was still a chance. Di Baiming's pale face gradually turned blood red. Yun Chuzhou could feel that his body had become warmer. A huge ecstasy surged in her heart. However, she did not dare to speak or move. She was afraid that this was a dream. She woke up as soon as she moved. At this moment, the golden light intensified. The dazzling light pierced everyone's eyes, and Yun Chuzhou was no exception. However, she felt that her hand was empty. She ignored the dazzling golden light and opened her eyes in fear. She saw Di Baiming's entire body turn into nothingness in the golden light. Yun Chujiu spat out a mouthful of blood. She closed her eyes and fainted. When Yun Chujiu regained consciousness again, she was still at the bottom of the pit. Xue Wuji and the others were waiting nervously at the side. They wanted to send Yun Chujiu back to the 10 Directions Academy, but knowing her character, they did not move her in the end. Yun Chujiu's eyes were blank at first, then she suddenly sat up and looked around in panic. Where is the gigolo? Where is my gigolo? Where is he? Where did you hide him? Give him back to me. Please give him back to me. Where did you hide him? Xue Wuji forced a smile and said, Little sister Jiu, calm down first. Think about it. This is a good thing. I don't know where the facial paralysis went, but at least it means that he is still alive. Maybe he is hiding somewhere to recover. When he recovers, he will come to find you. Yun Chujiu looked at him in a daze. Is what you said true? The gigolo just went to recover. You didn't lie to me. Why would I lie to you? That facial paralysis must have gone to recuperate. You have to take good care of yourself. Otherwise, when he comes back and sees that you've become an old woman, he might despise you. He dares. Otherwise, when he comes back and sees that I'm disobedient, he'll be angry. I'll sleep now. Maybe I'll dream of him. As Yun Chujiu spoke, she lay straight at the bottom of the pit and closed her eyes. Everyone turned their heads when they saw Yun Chujiu like this. They couldn't bear to look at her anymore. How was she still the lively little girl from before? She was obviously too sad and crazy. In the next few days, Yun Chujiu ate when she was supposed to eat and slept when she was supposed to sleep. However, she stayed at the bottom of the pit. It was obvious that she didn't plan to go out. The battle between the various major factions and the gods and demons had not completely ended. Chu Feng and the others could not stay here forever. Fortunately, Xue Wuji and En Feng were here. Chu Feng and the others left with a team of guards inside as they left. Chapter 6094 Destruction of the Divine Devil Temple. As time passed, news came one after another. As Lan Luochen was nowhere to be found, the Divine Devil Temple's strength was greatly weakened. After a few months of fighting, they were at a disadvantage. The Alliance of 10,000 Cities and the Iron Blood Alliance were divided under the heavy pressure. They changed masters and eventually surrendered. The 10 Directions Academy, the Divine Enlightenment Academy, and the 10,000 Buddha's Sacred Temple obtained the final victory. However, when they arrived at the Divine Devil Palace, they didn't find the mysterious master of the Divine Devil Palace. The remaining higher-ups of the Divine Devil Palace had all died because of the spiritual imprint, and the Divine Devil Palace had been destroyed just like that. Everyone couldn't help but feel a little dazed. The Divine Devil Palace had existed for tens of thousands of years, but it had been destroyed just like that? Why did it feel so surreal? However, that was the truth. It was as if the Divine Devil Hall had disappeared from the Divine Enlightenment continent overnight. Even the higher-ups of the lower continents had perished almost at the same time because of the Divine Sense imprints. The remaining small fries were nothing to be afraid of. They were quickly swallowed up by the other forces. Yun Chujiu's emotions did not fluctuate much when she heard the news. Ever since Di Baiming disappeared from her sight, she seemed to have lost her emotions, leaving only numbness. She ate, slept, and cultivated mechanically every day. She did not even speak a single word for a day. When Xue Wuji saw her like this, he did not know how to comfort her. He could only silently guard her safety with En Feng. On this day, Xue Wuji sat not far from the deep pit as usual, frowning. However, rustling sounds came from the bushes. Xue Wuji's eyes turned cold. Just as he was about to make a move, he heard a sobbing voice, "Don't make a move, it's me, it's me." Xue Wuji focused his eyes and saw a dirty yellow snake crawling out from the bushes. If it didn't speak human language, it would really be no different from the lowest level demon snake. Are you the spirit pet of the facial paralysis, the little perverted dragon? Shui Wuji asked suspiciously. Yeah, isn't that me? You guys are so mean, no one cares about my life. You actually threw me into the misty lake and didn't care about me. I spent a lot of effort to save my life and found you guys. If it wasn't for the contract, I really wanted to establish my own sect. The little perverted dragon said with a sad face. That day, Di Baiming and the other two attacked Lan Luochen at the Misty Lake, and the little dragon was also sent out by Di Baiming to help. Although it wasn't afraid of the water, its fighting strength in the water was greatly reduced, and because it was injured, it got separated from Di Baiming and the others after a long time. By the time it swam to the shore, there was no trace of Di Baiming and the others. Fortunately, the spirit pet and its master could sense each other. This feeling was affected by the distance, so the little dragon could only sense the general direction. So, it set off on the road to find its master. It was already not far from the exquisite mountain, but suddenly, its cultivation level was reduced by 80 to 90%. Its body shape also changed from the majestic golden dragon to a small yellow snake. The little yellow dragon was completely dumbfounded. What kind of sin had it committed? How could it have degenerated? As its cultivation level had fallen to the bottom of the food chain, the little yellow dragon's situation became more and more difficult. It was not a long journey, but it took a few months to reach here with a slim chance of survival. Shui Wuji was stunned for a moment, then his face revealed an ecstatic expression. He grabbed the little yellow dragon's tail and jumped into the deep pit excitedly. Little Sister Jiu, look, what is this? Yun Chujia's eyes indifferently fell on the little yellow dragon that Shui Wuji was holding, but she did not say anything. Shui Wuji did not care much and threw the little yellow dragon on the ground. He shook Yun Chujio and said in ecstasy, Little Sister Jiu, this is a little yellow dragon. It's still alive, and its contract with facial paralysis is still there. It means that facial paralysis is really not dead. Chapter 6094 Destruction of the Divine Devil Temple. As time passed, news came one after another. As Lan Luochen was nowhere to be found, the Divine Devil Temple's strength was greatly weakened. After a few months of fighting, they were at a disadvantage. The Alliance of 10,000 Cities and the Iron Blood Alliance were divided under the heavy pressure. They changed masters and eventually surrendered. The 10 Directions Academy, the Divine Enlightenment Academy, and the 10,000 Buddha's Sacred Temple obtained the final victory. However, when they arrived at the Divine Devil Palace, they didn't find the mysterious master of the Divine Devil Palace. The remaining higher-ups of the Divine Devil Palace had all died because of the spiritual imprint, and the Divine Devil Palace had been destroyed just like that. Everyone couldn't help but feel a little dazed. The Divine Devil Palace had existed for tens of thousands of years, but it had been destroyed just like that? Why did it feel so surreal? However, that was the truth. It was as if the Divine Devil Hall had disappeared from the Divine Enlightenment continent overnight. Even the higher-ups of the lower continents had perished almost at the same time because of the divine sense imprints. The remaining small fries were nothing to be afraid of. They were quickly swallowed up by the other forces. Yun Chujia's emotions did not fluctuate much when she heard the news. Ever since Di Baiming disappeared from her sight, she seemed to have lost her emotions, leaving only numbness. She ate, slept, and cultivated mechanically every day. She did not even speak a single word for a day. When Shui Wuji saw her like this, he did not know how to comfort her. He could only silently guard her safety with Enfeng. On this day, Shui Wuji sat not far from the deep pit as usual, frowning. However, rustling sounds came from the bushes. Shui Wuji's eyes turned cold. Just as he was about to make a move, he heard a sobbing voice, "Don't make a move, it's me, it's me." Shui Wuji focused his eyes and saw a dirty yellow snake crawling out from the bushes. If it didn't speak human language, it would really be no different from the lowest level demon snake. Are you the spirit pet of the facial paralysis, the little perverted dragon? Shui Wuji asked suspiciously. Yeah, isn't that me? You guys are so mean, no one cares about my life. You actually threw me into the misty lake and didn't care about me. I spent a lot of effort to save my life and found you guys. If it wasn't for the contract, I really wanted to establish my own sect. The little perverted dragon said with a sad face. That day, Di Baiming and the other two attacked Lan Luochen at the misty lake, and the little dragon was. Although it wasn't afraid of the water, its fighting strength in the water was greatly reduced, and because it was injured, it got separated from Di Baiming and the others after a long time. By the time it swam to the shore, there was no trace of Di Baiming and the others. Fortunately, the spirit pet and its master could sense each other. This feeling was affected by the distance, so the little dragon could only sense the general direction. So, it set off on the road to find its master. It was already not far from the exquisite mountain, but suddenly, its cultivation level was reduced by 80 to 90%. Its body shape also changed from the majestic golden dragon to a small yellow snake. The little yellow dragon was completely dumbfounded. What kind of sin had it committed? How could it have degenerated? As its cultivation level had fallen to the bottom of the food chain, the little yellow dragon's situation became more and more difficult. It was not a long journey, but it took a few months to reach here with a slim chance of survival. Shui Wuji was stunned for a moment, then his face revealed an ecstatic expression. He grabbed the little yellow dragon's tail and jumped into the deep pit excitedly. Little Sister Jiu, look, what is this? Yun Chujia's eyes indifferently fell on the little yellow dragon that Shui Wuji was holding, but she did not say anything. Shui Wuji did not care much and threw the little yellow dragon on the ground. He shook Yun Chujio and said in ecstasy, Little Sister Jiu, this is a little yellow dragon. It's still alive, and its contract with facial paralysis is still there. It means that facial paralysis is really not dead. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 6096 Cultivation Base Sword. Yun Chujio was shocked when she heard Xiao Hanio's words. The golden light from that day had indeed gathered in Di Baiming's body from the soil. Could it really be related to the liquid flowing out of the giant hand? That liquid was most likely the blood of the temple master of the divine devil temple. However, she did not know why his blood was golden. It seemed that the most important thing now was to find the temple master of the divine devil temple or find Lan Luochen. And Feng, who had been standing by the side, said suddenly, You forgot one person. Who? Su Yanran. Although many of the higher-ups of the divine devil temple had died, there was no news about Su Yanran. The giant hand had attacked twice for Su Yanran. Apparently, Su Yanran was as useful to him as Lan Luochen. However, Su Yanran often disappeared for a long time, which really puzzled me. Yun Chujio and Shui Wuji looked at each other. Yes, they had forgotten about Su Yanran. However, Su Yanran was just like the temple master of the divine devil temple. Her whereabouts were mysterious, and it was as difficult as climbing up to the sky to find her. Shui Wuji could not help but sigh. He thought of his unfaithful woman. The whereabouts of the unfaithful woman were also extremely mysterious. He did not know where she was at all. Previously, he had lied to him that he could meet her once his cultivation reached the level of spiritual fusion. Later, he found out that there was no such cultivation level as spiritual fusion, okay? This heartless woman clearly did not want to see him. He did not know if the unfaithful woman would change her heart and find a stepfather for Ruier. After a moment of silence, Yun Chujio said, No matter where the gigolo is, as long as I persevere, I will definitely be able to find him. I will ask my master and the others to send people to look for clues. The two of you will accompany me to the place where the thunderstruck stones are produced to look for the thunderstruck stones. I want to raise my cultivation level as soon as possible. Previously, Yun Chuzhou was worried about the pursuit of the divine devil hall, so she did not dare to rashly go to the place where the thunderstruck stones were produced. Now, she no longer had to worry so much. Moreover, she hoped that she could meet the remnants of the divine devil hall and perhaps obtain some useful clues. In the next few months, Yun Chuzhou, Shui Wuji, and Feng, and a group of dumb beasts began to collect lightning strike stones from various places. Although Shui Wuji and Feng did not say it, they were worried in their hearts. Yun Chuzhou was not cultivating. She was completely putting her life on the line. Every time she went to a place where lightning strike stones were produced, she would not only absorb the power of lightning from those lightning strike stones, but she would also deliberately provoke those lightning-type demon beasts. She was wounded by the thunder-type beasts time and time again, but she did not allow them to interfere. She only wanted to absorb the power of lightning from the bodies of the thunder-type beasts. Yun Chuzhou worked hard to cultivate. Even if she was not struck by lightning again, Yun Chuzhou's cultivation base had soared to the 5th level of Xinqiang realm. The three of them had visited almost all the thunderstruck rocks in the Divine Enlightenment continent before returning to the 10 Directions Academy. After returning to the 10 Directions Academy, Yun Chuzhou began to learn the Earth-grade alchemy and talisman-making skills from Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu. As she no longer held back, her amazing talent surprised and delighted Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu. However, looking at their precious disciple who rarely smiled, they were both surprised and worried. However, no matter what methods they used, they could not make Yun Chuzhou really happy, let alone return to her usual cheeky appearance. A year passed in the blink of an eye. Even though the 10 Directional Academy sent many people to scout for news, they still did not have any valuable clues. Not only did they not have any clues about Di Baiming, they did not even have any news about the Divine Devil Hall Master and the others. It was as if these people had disappeared into thin air. Chapter 6097 The little grasshopper broke its shell on this day. Yun Chuzhou's spirit beast bag finally regained some of its usual hustle and bustle because the little grasshopper had finally broken its shell. Originally, the little grasshopper would need at least 3 years to break its shell. However, when it attacked the giant hand previously, countless cracks appeared on the eggshell. As a result, the little grasshopper gave birth prematurely. Buttface and the others looked at the skinny little bug that had crawled out of the egg and laughed uncontrollably. Previously, the 1,000-year-old corpse turtle emperor bug was more than 6 feet long, but now it was only an inch long. What are you laughing at? I became like this because I gave birth prematurely. Otherwise, I would have been 5 feet long when I was born. The little grasshopper said in embarrassment. When Buttface and the others heard the little grasshopper's words, they laughed even more happily. They were so angry that the little grasshopper almost died when it was born. Even Yun Chuzhou, who rarely smiled in the past year, curled the corners of her lips, but she did not stop the silly cuties from fooling around. At this moment, Sha Mo, who had been quiet all this time, said, "Little girl, you have already been seriously infected by the corpse aura, right? I advise you to help me find His Majesty the Demon Emperor as soon as possible. Otherwise, you will become a walking corpse sooner or later." Yun Chuzhou had long forgotten about the matter of fooling Sha Mo that day. Only after hearing Sha Mo's words did she remember that there was such a thing. Therefore, she hurriedly called Shui Wuji over so that Sha Mo could identify him. Sha Mo shook his head repeatedly. "No, he's not the Demon Emperor. He doesn't have the aura of the Demon Emperor at all." Yun Chuzhou frowned. She had thought that Shui Wuji might be the Demon Emperor, but now it seemed that she was overthinking. She had 2 reasons for keeping Sha Mo. Firstly, she was worried that Yun Fengjin and Yilan were reincarnated from the demon race, and secondly, she was worried that Shui Wuji's background would implicate the demon race. Now, after her mediation, the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall had released Yun Fengjin and Yilan. However, the Zen sect had been sending people to monitor their whereabouts. However, she wondered if Shui Wuji would be related to the demon race in the future. Sha Mo saw that Yun Chuzhou had no intention of looking for the Demon Emperor, so he snorted coldly, don't you want to dissolve the corpse qi in your body? If you delay any longer, there's no hope even if you go to the demon race continent. Yun Chujiu said indifferently, of course I want to go, but there are too few clues about the demon emperor. No matter how anxious I am, there's not. If your lover was the demon emperor, you would have tried your best to find him long ago. Let me tell you, maybe your lover is on the demon continent. Yun Chujiu was shocked, but she still looked indifferent. Do you think I can believe you? Believe it or not. Didn't you say that your lover turned into nothingness? The Heavenly Demon Clan has such a secret technique, maybe your lover is from the Heavenly Demon Clan. Normally, after using this secret technique, one would be teleported back to the Demon Clan continent. Of course, it might hurt one's vitality greatly, but at least one would be able to survive. Yun Chujiu was unable to determine whether Sha Mo was speaking the truth or not, but she had a glimmer of hope in her heart. Perhaps the pretty boy had really gone to the Demon Clan continent. Shui Wuji snorted coldly from the side, little sister Jiu, don't listen to this old thing's nonsense. He just wants to trick you into helping him find some demon emperor. Sha Mo also snorted coldly and said, I, Sha Mo Yi, have never disdained to lie. If you don't believe me, then forget it. Just pretend that I didn't say anything. In any case, little girl, if you don't hurry up and find the demon emperor, you will really become the legendary demon. Chapter 6098, Shui Wuji was robbed. Yun Chujiu cut off the spiritual sense connection with Sha Mo and looked at Shui Wuji. Brother Wuji, do you think what Sha Mo said is true? Could the pretty boy really be from the heavenly demon race? Did he really go to the demon continent? Shui Wuji scratched his head. I don't know. Sha Mo wants to find the so-called demon emperor. He might be lying to you. Yun Chujiu was silent for a long time. Even if there is a glimmer of hope, I don't want to give up. If there are still no clues after some time, I will go to the devil race continent to take a look. Shui Wuji said with a troubled expression, little sister Jiu, although the devil race can also absorb spiritual power, they mainly absorb devil qi. Your cultivation will probably drop a lot when you go to the devil race continent. Although Shui Wuji didn't say it in a subtle way, Yun Chujiu understood his underlying meaning. She might not be able to protect herself when she reached the demon continent, not to mention finding clues about debeiming. Man makes the best of things, Yun Chujiu said slowly and firmly. Shui Wuji couldn't say anything when he saw her like this, but he felt very bitter in his heart. He really didn't want to go to the demon continent. What if the so-called engagement was true? What if he was robbed when he arrived at the demon continent? He couldn't let that unfaithful woman down. Yun Chujiu seemed to have noticed something. She glanced at Shui Wuji and said, I'll go there by myself. You and the little lunatic will stay in the divine enlightenment continent and continue to look for clues. How can I do that? Without that facial paralysis, as your elder brother, I have to protect your safety. Isn't it just the demon continent? What's so great about it? I'll accompany you to explore it. Yun Chujiu didn't say anything, but she made up her mind. When the time came, she would go alone. She couldn't drag Shui Wuji down with her. If this fellow was really snatched away by some little demon, how would she have the face to meet Chi-Chi in the future? Unfortunately, the plan didn't change quickly. Before Yun Chujiu could decide when to go to the demon continent, Shui Wuji was actually kidnapped. On this day, Yun Chujiu was cultivating when Enfeng stumbled in. Mischievous, something bad happened. Young Master Wuji was kidnapped by... No, by something. Yun Chujiu was dumbfounded. What did you say? What do you mean by something kidnapped him? On the way to the accident site, Enfeng told them what happened. Just 15 minutes ago, when he was talking with Shui Wuji, several balls of black mist suddenly appeared in the courtyard. Before they could react, those balls of black fog wrapped around Shui Wuji and used some unknown method to disappear in an instant. Yun Chujiu arrived at the courtyard where the accident. Black fog. Could it be the demon race? She immediately let Sha Mo out and asked, could you smell the residual aura of the demon race? Sha Mo sniffed and his old face immediately became excited. That's right, it is indeed the aura left behind by the demon race. Could it be that the demon race has also sent people to look for His Majesty? Yun Chujiu sneered. 10,000 years have passed. Perhaps the demon race has already re-elected the demon emperor. Why would they send people to look for the demon emperor? Sha Mo immediately rebuked angrily, shut up. No one can replace the position of the demon emperor in the hearts of our demon race. No one has the right to be called the demon emperor again. Yun Chujiu was very convinced of Sha Mo's loyalty towards the demon emperor. This could not be described as loyalty anymore. He was just a proper brainless fan. Chapter 6099, and Feng's advice. Yun Chujiu ignored the furious Sha Mo. She thought that Xue Wuji had most likely been taken away by the demons, and it was obvious that they were not after his life. Could it really have something to do with the engagement he mentioned? Was he robbed of his wife? The more Yun Chujiu thought about it, the more she felt that it was more likely. Moreover, the person he was engaged to was not an ordinary person among the demons. It had been a long time since the demon race had appeared on the human continent. If not for the instigation of the higher-ups of the demon race would not have appeared on the human continent so easily. After all, if they were discovered, it might cause another great war between the human race and the demon race. It seemed that they had no choice but to go to the demon continent. However, they had to think of a way to trick Sha Mo into taking her to the demon continent willingly. Therefore, Yun Chujiu gave Feng a subtle look. Feng was a qualified subordinate, so he had a little bit of comprehension ability. He nodded his head immediately. Little lunatic, you just told me that the person who took Wu Ji's head was from the demon princess? Feng nodded his head immediately. Yes, they said that young Master Wuji was engaged to the demon princess, so they took young Master Wuji away. Sha Mo immediately snorted. Nonsense. When the demon emperor disappeared, he wasn't married yet. Where did the princess come from? But, that's exactly what they said. They even said that the demon emperor had already set a date for the wedding. It's the day next month. Feng said nonsense with a serious face. Sha Mo immediately became excited. What? Demon Emperor? Could it be that His Majesty has already been welcomed back? Moreover, he has married a concubine and has a son. That's not right. Even if the Demon Emperor has been welcomed back, how could the princess have an engagement with that Xue Wuji? You must be talking nonsense. Young Master Wuji has a seal on his body. Perhaps he fell back then because he was looking for the Demon Emperor. In order to reward him, the Demon Emperor might have arranged an engagement between him and the princess, Feng said. Feng felt that his ability to lie had improved by leaps and bounds. Even if he worked hard, he could catch up to Mischievous. Sha Mo was still a little skeptical. Yun Chujiu said indifferently, forget it. Anyway, it's a good thing for Brother Wu Ji to go to the demon race to be the prince consort. Let's silently bless him. Sha Mo, don't worry. I will continue to help you find the whereabouts of the demon emperor. It's best if you can find him. It doesn't matter if you. After saying that, Yun Chujiu did not care about Sha Mo's reaction. She directly put him into the spirit beast bag and cut off the connection with his divine sense. Feng then said in a low voice, "Ninth Miss, will he take us to the demon continent?" Yun Chujiu said indifferently, he will agree. Moreover, he will cry and beg me to go. Feng nodded. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "Ninth Miss, logically speaking, you are the master and I am the servant. There are some words that should not be overstepped, but I still think it is necessary to say it." Yun Chujiu raised her eyebrows slightly. "Just say it." Feng then said, "Miss Jiu, I can understand your feelings. After all, your excellency is missing, and you feel bad. However, so much time has passed, and your Excellency's life is not in danger. You should let yourself out of the haze. I believe that if your Excellency knows that you are unhappy every day, he will definitely feel sorry for you. One day, when you are reunited, he will definitely feel extremely guilty when he sees you like this. Therefore, ninth miss, whether it is for your own sake or your holiness, please open your heart and stop torturing yourself. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 6100, But Face's good idea and Feng's words made Yunchujo silent for a long time. I'm not torturing myself, but I feel that many things have lost their color. Nothing can make me feel happy. And Feng sighed. He knew that it was futile to say anything. She could only walk out by herself. Yunchujo continued, you don't have to follow me to the demon continent anymore. Jinji has already ascended to the heavy cloud continent. It's time for you to marry her. After I reunite with the pretty boy, it's not too late for you to return to his side and serve him. And Feng was shocked. Miss Jiu, Yunchujo waved her hand, there's no need to say anything else. What you've done is worthy of your master-servant relationship. However, you owe Jinji and yourself a lot. It's time for you to live your life well. Besides, after I go to the demon continent, the Yun family and my parents still need you to take care of them. I will entrust them to you. And Feng wanted to say something, but when he saw the determination on Yunchuji's face, he could only bow respectfully. Miss Jiu, please rest assured. As long as I'm still alive, I will never let the Yun family and your parents be bullied. Yunchujo nodded. Although she really wanted to visit her grandfather and her parents, she did not want them to see her current state. Even if others did not say it, she knew that her current state was very bad. She did not have any signs of life. She was like a pool of stagnant water. If they saw her, they would feel worried and would rather not see her. That night, Yunchujo hugged one of Di Baiming's clothes and closed her eyes as usual. Only in this way would she be able to obtain some comfort and let herself believe that Di Baiming was still alive. In her half-asleep state, Yunchujo vaguely saw a figure standing in front of her bed. Tears immediately flowed down her face. She did not dare to move and did not dare to say a word. She was afraid that everything in front of her would vanish into thin air and cease to exist. The person in front of her had a head of silver hair and was still that familiar cold face. His eyes were still filled with the familiar doting look. Little Jiu, are you blaming me? Yunchujo bit her lips and shook her head repeatedly. She wanted to say something, but her throat was blocked so badly that she could not say a word. Little Jiu, do you not believe me? Yunchujo shook her head again and again. In this world, the person she trusted the most was him. How could she not believe him? Since you don't blame me and trust me, why did you torture yourself into this state? When we meet again, I hope to see you as happy as you were in the past, and not as unhappy as you were in the past. Promise me, okay? Yunchujo nodded desperately with tears flowing down her face. She reached out to hold Di Baiming's hand, but she suddenly woke up. So, it was just a dream. Yunchujo was stunned for a long time, then she hugged Di Baiming's clothes and started sobbing. Outside the primal institution, Yunchuji's group of stupid Meng Yanshou were whispering to each other. But Face, can your method really work? Meng Yanshou, who had just sneaked out of the courtyard, asked suspiciously. As long as you follow my method, the little fairy will definitely return to her happy appearance. Do you want to see her now? I'm not bragging. All of you are blockheads. Only I can draw inferences from your actions. What that little lunatic said today has clearly touched the little fairy. As long as we add fuel to the fire, this matter will definitely be done. The silly cuties felt sorry for Yunchujo when they saw her like this, but there was nothing they could do to help. Therefore, they went to the hospital in a desperate situation and listened to Buttface's arrangements. Just as Butt-Face was feeling pleased with himself, the courtyard door was pushed open. Yun Chujia's slightly hoarse voice sounded, "Butt-Face, come over here. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 6101, Living Recklessly. Butt-Face's entire dog was in trouble. It was over. He had been exposed. He rubbed in front of Yun Chujio and said in a stammering manner, "Little fairy, I am a dog with a lot of guts. I'm not a human. Yes, I'm not a dog. If you don't forgive me for being a dog, please spare me this time." As he spoke, he looked at the other dumb cuties for help. Unfortunately, none of them spoke up for him. They all understood the principle of a dead fellow Taoist not dying. Especially the nightmare beast. It even added insult to injury and said, "Little fairy, I was tricked by dog too. If you want to punish it, punish it. I'm at most an accomplice." Dog 2 was so angry that it almost died. How smug it was just now was how miserable it was now. Just as it was feeling sorry for itself, Yun Chujio said in a hoarse voice, "Add a chicken drumstick every day from now on." But face the other dumb cuties, she wasn't punished, but she was rewarded. The little fairy must have gone mad, right? Yun Chujio looked up at the sky, and there were sparkling tears in the corners of her eyes. Even though the dream is fake, you're right. The pretty boy would definitely not want to see me like this. Happy is a day, and unhappy is a day. Even if I cry all day long, it won't change anything. I might as well live as I please, so that he won't feel guilty and hurt in the future. Butt-Face immediately said eagerly, "Little fairy, you're right. No matter if you're a human or a beast, you have to be heartless. Look at me, I used to be awesome. But now that I've become like this, am I not happy too? As long as I'm alive, any difficulty is nothing." The other dumb cubs nodded in agreement. Most of them had had extremely glorious times. Now, they could be said to be like a tiger that had fallen to the plains. However, they did not give up because of this. Nothing was more important than being alive. Yun Chujio wiped her tears with her hand and revealed a brilliant smile. Yes, nothing is more important than being alive. I was the one who went overboard. When the dumb-witted girls saw the long-lost smile on Yun Chujio's face, they heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. They only felt that the haze of the past few days had been swept away. At this moment, Yun Chujio suddenly sat cross-legged on the ground. It was an epiphany. The commotion here also alarmed Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu. When the two of them rushed over, Yun Chujio was still in the midst of an epiphany. It was not until dawn that Yun Chujio's body began to glow. She had actually broken through to the 7th layer of the Xinqing realm. Chu Feng was so happy that he could not close his mouth. Before he and Zhuang Mu he did not expect that their precious disciple had only used a little over a year to break through to the 7th layer of the Xinqing realm. This talent was simply too abnormal. What made him even happier was that his lively and precious disciple had returned. Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu could not help but shed tears. Their hearts that had been on their minds all this time were finally at ease. Seeing the two of them like this, Yun Chujio felt very guilty in her heart. "Master, I have made you worry. I have already thought it through. I will not dwell on it in the future. It's good that you have thought it through. As the saying goes, a lover will eventually return home. That brat will definitely return safely." Chu Feng said with a gratified look. In the following period, Yun Chujio had been stabilizing her cultivation in the Academy of 10 Directions. She gradually returned to her usual lively and cheerful personality. Sha Mo thought that Yun Chujio would once again encourage him to return to the Devil's Continent. However, he found that Yun Chujio did not seem to have such a plan. Since the last time, she did not bother with him at all. Sha Mo couldn't sit still anymore. Chapter 6102 The entrance to the demon continent. Sha Mo pondered over Yun Chujiu and Enfeng's words. Could it be that His Majesty the Demon Emperor had really returned to the demon continent? Or could it be that someone had the audacity to usurp the throne? No matter what the situation was, he could not stay out of it. If it was really His Majesty the Demon Emperor, he naturally had to go back and serve him well. If it was someone who usurped the throne, he would put his life on the line to make things right. With this thought in mind, Sha Mo anxiously asked Butt-Face to pass on a message. Little girl, you don't have to look for His Majesty the Demon Emperor. I will bring you back to the demon continent now, how about it? Yun Chujiu chewed on the spirit fruit in her hand and said indifferently, that's not very good, right? I didn't meet your conditions. How can I be so thick-skinned to follow you to the demon continent? No matter what, we have signed a demon god contract, so I naturally have to consider our friendship. Let's not waste any time. We will set off immediately. Otherwise, I'm afraid you will really become a demon. Sha Mo said anxiously. Yun Chujiu was silent for a while and then said, all right, you begged me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in a hurry to go to the demon continent. After all, I'm not familiar with this place, so I'd rather be a demon in the God Enlightenment continent than a demon in the demon continent. The demon collapsed. He wanted to vent his anger, but he was afraid that Yun Chujiu wouldn't go back to the demon continent with him. Therefore, he could only swallow his anger and say, all right, all right. Even if I beg you, you can do it, right? Let's hurry up and set off. The most secure entrance to the demon continent is in the heavy cloud continent. It will take a lot of time on the way. The heavy cloud continent? Yun Chujiu was a bit surprised. She thought that there would be an entrance to the God Enlightenment continent. She didn't expect that they would have to go to the heavy cloud continent. She immediately went to see Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu. She didn't mention anything about the demons, but said that she would go out to look for Di Baiming. The two didn't doubt her words. They reminded her to be careful. Yun Chujiu told Ding Wenru again, and then left the academy with Enfeng and Ding Wenru. They sped all the way to the Chongshao continent. Yun Chujiu did not sigh with emotion as she wanted to go back to the Devil's continent to find out about Di Baiming. Enfeng wanted to follow them, but he could not dissuade Yun Chujiu, so he had to part ways with her. Yun Chujiu was guided by Sha Mo, but she found the direction looked familiar. Wasn't this the direction of the Qing family in the Valley of Fog? Was the so-called entrance to the Devil's Continent at the back mountain of the Qing family? Back then, Qing Shaoqing of the Qing family imprisoned her father and killed her relatives for the secret of the back mountain. In the end, she couldn't find out the truth from Qing Haotian, the master of the Qing family. Could the secret of the back mountain of the Qing family be a teleportation array that could travel to and from different continents? The more Yun Chujiu thought about it, the more she felt that this was the case. This was the only way to explain why Qing Si was teleported to the Qing Xian continent back then. It was no wonder that Qing Haotian kept such a shocking secret like the entrance to the demon race continent. Naturally, he could not reveal it. Otherwise, what awaited the Qing family in the Valley of Fog would be a disaster. Yun Chujiu thought about it again and again, but she still did not go to see Qing Si and the master of the Qing family. After all, the human race and the demon race were mortal enemies. If the news of her going to the demon race was spread out, it might bring unnecessary trouble to those close to her. As expected, the place that Sha Mo ultimately guided was indeed the back mountain of the Qing family. Yun Chujiu's heart moved. She thought of a possibility and said to Sha Mo, your demon race sure has good methods. You actually planted a stronghold here. It's not really a stronghold. It's just a way out. Sha Mo did not hide it. Anyway, the little girl was in the same boat as him, so she would not dare to tell anyone. Chapter 6103 Evil Wind. Could the people of the Qing family of the Fog Valley be demons? Yun Chujiu asked in surprise. The Qing family of the Fog Valley? Are you talking about the people guarding this place? I don't know anything about the Qing family of the Fog Valley. I just know that the Demon Emperor was kind to this family, so this family voluntarily stayed to guard this teleportation array. Sigh, this is the blessing of His Majesty the Demon Emperor. If someone really dares to usurp the throne, I will kill him even at the cost of my old bones. Yun Chujiu didn't pay attention to Sha Mo's chattering. She thought that the Demon Emperor had a good trick to make the Qing family guard this teleportation array for such a long time. Of course, as time went by, the master of the Qing family might not know that this teleportation array was the entrance to the demon continent. He just thought that it could lead to other continents. Even so, as the saying goes, having a treasure is a sin. Naturally, he would continue to keep his mouth shut. At this moment, Sha Mo said, "Let me out. I will activate the teleportation array." Yun Chujiu immediately let Sha Mo out. Sha Mo turned into a cloud of black fog. She did not know how he did it, but a transparent barrier appeared in front of them. Sha Mo wanted to take the opportunity to leave Yun Chujiu behind and escape back to the demon continent. However, when he thought of the contract between him and Yun Chujiu, he could only give up this idea. The contract between the demon god was very overbearing. No matter how far he ran, as long as Yun Chujiu thought about it, he could only die. Although the demon race was immortal and could be reincarnated in the future, he still had many things to do. Naturally, he wasn't willing to die just like that. Anyway, this little girl was not familiar with the demon continent, so he had to hope that he could help her get closer to the heavenly demon tribe and learn the supreme demonic code. By then, there would be a lot of ways for her to break the contract with the demon god. Thinking of this, Sha Mo said to He Xinjiu in a bad mood, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and go in." Yun Chujiu did not argue with him and walked into the enchantment. Sha Mo followed closely behind. With a flash of light, everything returned to its original calm. The teleportation passage was filled with a biting cold wind. Sha Mo was gloating in his heart. Although the wind was not fatal, it would make people feel pain as if they were being dismembered. Since he could turn into a mist, he naturally did not feel any pain. However, that wretched girl was different. She would definitely be cut by the Sha wind and cry like a ghost. Just thinking about it was enough to vent his anger. However, he was soon disappointed. That was because he saw that wretched girl hiding in a big iron pot. She had not been cut by the Sha wind at all. Sha Mo was furious. This wretched girl was really cunning. She had actually made preparations in advance. However, wasn't this big iron pot too sturdy? It could even withstand the evil wind. After an unknown amount of time, Yun Chujiu and Sha Mo finally felt that they were on solid ground. Yun Chujiu crawled out of the big iron pot and looked around. She was surprised to find that there was a city not far away from them. It did not look much different from a human city. Sha Mo hunched his back and tears streamed down his face. He muttered, "I never thought that I, Sha Mo Yi, would have the day to return to the Imperial City." Imperial City? You said that the city in the distance is the Imperial City of your demon race? Yun Chujiu asked in shock. Sha Mo glared at her. Watch your words. What do you mean by your Imperial City? It's our Imperial City. Since you were able to sign a demon god contract with me, you must be of the demon race. However, you can't turn into a fog. I reckon that you are a little bastard. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.